Today we're going to do an update to a UPASv2Plus using Mac OS14 and the terminal application. To find the terminal application, navigate to a Finder window, Applications, Utilities, and double-click on Terminal. If you need the firmware file, you'll need to have that downloaded to your computer. So for that, we can go to accessors.com/support. If you scroll down on the left, you'll see a link for latest firmware. In this instance, we're going through updating a UPASv2Plus. And you'll see that there's a firmware file folder and instructions. Download the instructions. And download the firmware file. With a terminal window open, you'll see that you have an initial prompt that's the username at whatever type of Mac you're using. We're going to use a program called rsync. rsync requires two pieces of information: the full location of the file and the file name that we would like to copy, and the location that that copy is going to. As a shortcut to avoid typos, you can drag and drop that firmware file that you've downloaded, and it will update on the screen with the full location and file name of that file. So in this instance, you see that we've got users, Thomas Riley, desktop, and then the full file name of that firmware. That's the location of the file we want to copy, and now we'll do a /volumes dap link as our desired location to send the file. But our UPAS is not turned on at the moment. And that means that if we try to flash the file there, it won't go. So now let's set up our UPAS to make sure that it's able to receive that file. On the locations, you'll see here that we have a series of drives, and when we have our UPAS plugged in with the micro USB connected by USB to this Mac, and I power the UPASv2Plus on by holding the on button, you'll see a dap link drive appears on our desktop, just like as if we were using a thumb drive. And we can see that the dap link appears as a location. So now we can return to terminal, and as we hit enter, we can send this file, this updated firmware file, over to the UPAS that's connected to the Mac. When we hit enter, you should expect a brief pause, and the command line will return to us when the operation is completed. So now the operation is completed, and we can power the UPAS down so that the power LED indicator turns off. We'll see our drive disappeared. And to check if the firmware was updated correctly, you can connect to the UPAS through the app, where the app checks and pulls back the firmware version that's being used on the device, or you can initiate a very brief run of the UPAS, and you'll see that firmware number as part of the log file data that's written every time a firmware file is written. And that's it. Let us know if you have any issues.